And what I then thought at the time when I just transitioned was that I'm going to work hard. I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to work hard because I truly believe that my work will speak for itself. And that's advice that we get so often. I don't think it's ill-intended advice, but it's definitely not always helpful when it comes to progressing. Okay, so there I am, I'm working hard. Guys, the quality of my work, oh, even when I think about it now, the quality of my work was phenomenal. I loved it. I was getting great ratings, performance-wise, so on and so forth. But then this was going on every year, year one, year two, year three. And as I was approaching year four, I thought, wait a minute, I've been in the same position. Yes, I've been doing all the hard work and it's great quality and I'm getting great feedback on that work, but I'm not actually progressing career-wise. I'm not getting promotions. I'm not leading teams. I'm not making decisions. If anything, I'm just an executor of decisions. Other people make decisions and there I am laboring away. And an opportunity came up. An opportunity came up for a promotion. It was right up my alley. Even when I handed in my CV, the manager the hiring manager was so excited. He came to me and said, "Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so glad that you handed in your CV. Really looking forward to the interview." In my mind, it was slam dunk. Okay, I've got this. Hands down, it is mine. The floor was excited. It was like everyone was cheering me on to this interview. And so I went ahead, I did the interview. I thought it went okay. Okay. I thought it went okay. And then a couple of weeks later, I get a meeting request for the feedback of the interview. And I thought, that's strange. Why don't you just send me my contract? I'm ready to sign. Send me my contract. Why do you want to do a feedback session? So I go to the feedback session and whew, yeah, it was brutal. Like thinking about it right now, I'm just like, okay, it was brutal. So I got feedback like, you don't know how to sell yourself, even though we've seen you engaging in certain leadership initiatives in the team, on the floor, you didn't even articulate that. There was nothing coming from you about leadership, how you would handle certain situations. Um, you weren't able to say why you're the person for the role. And so what was difficult for the for the hiring manager was that HR form that they have to fill. They said that they actually had nothing to write. They didn't have much to write at all. And so I'm hearing this feedback, and I don't know if you've been in those sessions where your tears are here, like it's right here. And I knew that if I spoke much, I mean, I didn't have much to say at the time, but if I spoke much, the tears would just be streaming down my face. And so I thanked them. I thanked the managers giving me the feedback, and I said that I would revert. I would revert with any thoughts that I had because I couldn't speak that much at the time. And so, I did a lot of self reflection and introspection and so on and so forth. And I thought, you know what? It's just because I don't have enough experience. It's because I don't know this, I don't know that. So I'm going to start doing courses. I'm going to go on training. I'm going to learn how to be a leader. I'm going to learn how to promote myself and so on. And so I got into a learning loop. If you could name a course, I was there. I did leadership course. I did decision-making courses. I did the personal branding course. I was there. But my problem was that I spent so much time just making notes. I'm making notes in every course that I'm going to. And once I'm done, close my notes, I pack them away. Next course, I'm there. I'm making notes. I'm participating. And so I quickly realized that I'm not implementing anything, right? And that there's a difference between knowledge acquisition and knowledge application. So a bit of time went by and still nothing is changing for me. And I decided to dust off those notes and go through them. I went through the leadership, I went through the personal branding, I went through the decision making, so on and so forth. And the one thing that I saw was a common denominator, essentially the golden thread between all of those different things that I wanted to become better in, was the ability to communicate effectively and the ability to speak with confidence, to share your thoughts, to ask questions, to challenge things. And at the time, it sounded a bit easy. I was like, oh, all I need to do is speak and I'll be fine. But then you realize, just speaking and communicating effectively are different things. And I thought, let me start, but let me start small. Because if you had to see me in a meeting before I decided to start, I'm that person in the corner of the meeting. I've got a question. I've got a comment. I've got ideas that I want to share. But the nerves have come over me that most instances I just remain quiet. I cannot say anything. And if I do for some reason find courage from somewhere to speak, then my voice is shaking. I sound like I want to cry. Then I'm upset that I sound like I want to cry. And so I speed through everything I need to say. And by the time I'm done then speaking, everyone's like, okay, thanks, because they're not quite sure exactly what I was trying to say. So when I decided to start small, I thought, you know what, the one thing that I can say for sure that I'm confident in, and I know everyone else won't say that's wrong, is to state the obvious. So that's what I started doing. I would state the obvious. And sometimes I'd feel so shy to state the obvious because I'm like, no, man, everyone here knows it. Everyone here knows it. But I've had experiences where I wanted to state the obvious and I didn't, and somebody else did. And then the whole room acts like they've just heard the most groundbreaking thing. And I'm like, what? We all knew that. So that's the tip that I started off with. I decided to state the obvious. And I started growing. It was like a snowball effect. I started growing with that. Now I'm speaking a bit more. I'm asking a bit more challenges, asking a bit more questions. I'm challenging a bit more. And I can tell you in the space of about 10 months or almost a year, I was then promoted to vice president in my space. I was leading project teams. I was part of decision making. Decisions looked a lot more colorful, if I can say, because I was able to provide my input. And so when I looked back, I was like, how did I get here? Because I was just that lady doing the hard work and getting, great ratings, but no promotions, no opportunities, and so on. But now I just feel like opportunities are flooding my way. When did I even get here? And once again, I decided to do the self-reflection. And I thought, okay, what did I do differently? I knew I didn't get a new degree. I knew I didn't get any other work experience because I was still doing the same thing. But the difference was that I was a lot more visible now. And I was visible because I was speaking. I was communicating effectively. I was speaking with confidence. And that was the game changer for me. And when I see other people as well. There are other people in positions. I don't know if you've ever come across someone you're like, I wonder how you got here. But this person speaks a lot. And so opportunities go their way. And that's the thing with speaking with confidence. It's almost an unfair advantage. So if you don't do it, you stay in the corner and you're not getting the opportunities and you are being passed by. And then if you do it, it's not that you're always qualified for every opportunity that you get, but for some reason, there's just this level of trust that people will put in you for some reason. And so when it comes to the power of speaking with confidence, I believe it's in the fiber of my being because I have lived it. I have experienced it. So speaking with confidence, honestly, it really does just change the projection for you. And so because of that, I then decided to start coaching. Okay, I decided to start coaching, and I don't know if you've noticed how, let's say I'm into red t-shirts now. So I go, I buy my red t-shirts. I'm wearing my red t-shirts everywhere now. And now I start noticing other people wearing red t-shirts, but I didn't notice them before. And that's the thing, once I worked on this skill for myself, I then started to see other people who needed it. I'm in meeting rooms, I'm in sessions, and I can see someone who's literally raising their hand up like this to speak. And in my heart, I'm like, no, come on, you can do it. Just speak up, you can do it. But, I can't just go up to them and tell them, hey guys, I'm a coach, like I can help you. I can help you speak. So because of that, I thought, you know what? I would love to help as many people as possible. I would love to reach out to as many people as possible to really help them, to empower them to speak with confidence so that they can make the impact that they want to make. And so I got into coaching, and I specialize specifically with corporate professionals and entrepreneurs. And that is my public speaking journey. I saw some messages in the chat, so I just want to have a look at that. Joel says, this is so me. Oh, I hear you. Especially those instances when the person is rewarded for saying something you wanted to say. My goodness. And then you want to roll your eyes, but you're in a professional setting, so now you're keeping it professional. But in my head, I'm like, my eyes can't roll any further back. Princess, self-evaluation and reflection, absolutely. The corporate world favors the extroverts than the introverts. We're going to talk about that. I think it favors the people who have the courage to speak. Shafatu says, really? Emmanuel says, true, but introverts also have their roles. Absolutely. I agree, Emmanuel. Introverts have their role to play, and we will definitely chat about that. Prince says, amazing storyline. Hey, it was my reality, Prince. It was my reality. Okay, now let's go into understanding some of the common speaking fears as well as their origins. Before we go into it, I'm first going to cover parts where Judith and Emmanuel stole my thunder about speaking. What is a public speaking situation? Okay, so I used to think, and I think sometimes a lot of people also think that when you hear the words public speaking, you're thinking you're on this big stage, there's lots of lights, these eyes are on you, you have this mega presentation. So that's what I used to think public speaking was. But then I realized that we just need to have 3 elements in place before we are in a public speaking situation. Number 1, you need a speaker, and generally that is you. Secondly, you need an audience, and that audience can be one person or 1,000 people. So when you hear the words audience, don't think it has to be a large crowd. It can be one person. And thirdly, you need to have a message for that audience. So anytime you have a speaker, audience, and message, you are in a public speaking situation. So just think, Sam, remember Sam, whenever you're in that situation, you're in a public speaking situation. And so because of that, you tend to see that we actually engage in public speaking throughout our day a lot more frequently than you would think, right? Examples would be a discussion with a lecturer if you're a student. If you are giving the toast at a friend's event, that's public speaking. If you are presenting a project, whether it's at university, at work, or for one of your clients or investors, you're doing public speaking. Pitching an idea in a meeting, giving your manager an update, even if it's a corridor chat. In that instance, it is public speaking. Attending interviews, conducting interviews, all of these are public speaking situations. Now, what we want is to be able to walk away from these interactions, from these public speaking situations, knowing that we presented and represented ourselves to the best of our ability. I don't know about you, but oh, you know, those moments when you come out of a conversation and you're like, I should have said this. Or you're coming out of a meeting like, oh, I should have asked that question. I should have. And things, nobody gets to experience that, right? Should have, would have, could have. Nobody gets to experience it. But what you would love is to know that, you know what, I really represented myself quite well over there. I said what I needed to say. I respected my rights, because I think a lot of the times as well, especially when we were with dominating personalities, we'll respect their rights and their ideas and their comments and their suggestions. And you have something, but you don't say anything just because somebody else is a bit more dominant or somebody else has a louder voice. And so walking away from those situations, knowing that you really represented yourself, oh man, it's a different kind of calmness and peace that just comes over you. But there are certain things that hold us back. And a lot of the times, it's actually our nerves. It's the anxiety that's just holding us back from really speaking, from really representing ourselves, from challenging people, and so on. Okay. And where do the common speaking fears actually come from? Where do nerves and anxiety actually come from? Today, I'll talk about 3 places. There are other places. If you've got other contributors to your nerves and to your anxiety, please share it in the chat as well. There are other contributors, but I'm only going to cover 3 tonight. The first one, the common one, is the fear of judgment. And where I think this stems from is that so many times we're judging other people. When somebody else is speaking, we're judging them. As I'm speaking now, you're judging me. There are certain things that you might like about what I do or how I speak, and there are also things that you might not like. And so you can easily judge me. And it could even be harsh. It could be something that, you know what, it's not as bad as you're making it out. I hope you don't have that on your mind, but it's not as bad as you're making it out. And so when it's your turn now to be the one speaking or to stand up or, you know, to share your thoughts, you might fear that you're going to be judged the way you judge other people. Or you might fear that you're going to be judged the way your neighbor had judged Judith when she was speaking the last time. And, you know, because of that, it tends to hold us back because you're like, I'm not going to stand up there and get judged. Oh, I'm going to be judged about my accent. I'm going to be judged about how I look. Or I'm going to be judged about, you know, how I speak, so on and so forth, because we're constantly noticing that in other people. And I guess what's funny is even though you can look at someone and see what you like and see what you don't like, when it's your turn to stand up, you won't always do the things that you like. And you won't always refrain from the things that you don't like. And because you're not sure of that, you now fear that judgment. And then that tends to hold us back. The second thing is being afraid of making mistakes. And what I like to look at here is how you treat your mistakes just in an ordinary day. How do you normally judge yourself? How do you normally deal with yourself for making a mistake? And because the way you do that in other situations will probably be an indicator of how you will judge yourself for making a mistake. We all make mistakes. I've been making mistakes since I started this presentation. Every now and then I say something like, oh, is that what I wanted to say? We all make mistakes, but we tend to just judge ourselves so harshly. And sometimes I think it's so important for us to ask ourselves, what's the absolute worst? What is the worst that could happen if I say the wrong thing, if I make a mistake, if I fumble or I'm over my words or I forget something? What is the absolute worst that could happen? And if that worst does happen, what can you do about it? There must be something that you can do about it. And if there's nothing you can do about it, there's nothing you can do about it. But if there's something you can do about it, then have that in place to say, you know what, if I make a mistake and I speak about point 3. So I go point 1, point 3, point 2. Instead of following the order, I can always just tell my audience, oh, I skipped the point. And then you go on to point 2. If I make a mistake and I say, oh, this project is going to be $1,000, but it was actually meant to be 10,000 order, $10,000. I made a mistake, $10,000. Fix it. What is the absolute worst that could happen? I'd really like for you to think about that. In some of the fears that you have, what is the absolute worst that could happen? And if that worst did happen, what could you do about it? Because then you might realize it's not as scary as you thought. You might realize it's not as daunting. I could just talk about it. I could just correct myself. I could come back to the audience later on and say, this is a correction to point A. This is what it actually is and not what I said earlier. And another reason why we have speaking fears is because we've had negative experiences in the past. And we tend to think that because something happened in the past or has been happening in the past, it will just keep on happening. But the truth is, if you do want a new and a different result or output, you just need a new and a different input. You just need to change maybe one thing. Try out one thing. You know, you might say, oh, when it comes to speaking and public speaking, I need to work on my articulation, my nerves, answering questions on the spot, thinking fast, blah, blah, blah. So now you've got so many things. But if you pick one thing, and you make a difference in that one thing, you've already got a different output. You're already starting to build new experiences. So don't let your past experiences hold you back from trying again. Okay. Let me see the chat. Okay. Londi says, I can relate to the habit of taking notes, but never give yourself time to go through them. Yep. Judith says, the I should haves are so painful. They absolutely are. A better comeback thought. Emmanuel says, I can really relate to the, oh, I should have asked this question. Yep. Princess inferiority complex. Absolutely. That comes through. Princess also unpreparedness. Yep. That can definitely make you super nervous. Sarah says, fear my thoughts being tossed away or disregarded after finding the courage to speak. I can understand that. I can understand that. Prince says every mistake is a new style. It is. It is. And now you find one more way of how not to do things. You're like, okay, next time I'm not trying it this way. Lundy says, sometimes you fear that your audience will not understand what you are trying to say, and you'll have to repeat and rephrase what you're saying. That is a proper fear, but there are ways in which you can work around that. Shafata says, everyone is watching you. They absolutely are, but it's because you have a message for them. Mohammed says, low confidence too is a factor. Dennis says, the best of the worst analysis. Aurelia says, overthink before you ask your question is a killer. Absolutely. And second guessing yourself. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Now, if we had to look at some of the strategies that we have to manage nerves and anxiety and to build confidence. Now, a secret that I can tell you is that you will not eliminate all of the fear. You will not eliminate all of the nerves or the anxiety. If it could be done, it would have been done already. If there was a pull, if there was, you know, a quick technique that you could do to just eliminate it all, you would have done that already. But what you need to know as well is that nerves are normal. Okay, nerves are normal. You shouldn't try or aim to have zero nerves, to be as cool as a cucumber. Sometimes people who are too cool as a cucumber are also as inspiring as a cucumber because, it's very nonchalant the way they might be presenting or speaking. I was nervous before I came onto the call because I was like, oh, how are they going to receive it? It's the first time I speak to this audience, so on and so forth. So anytime you hit new heights or something new, new audience, new topic that you're covering, new levels, new job, new project that you're doing, of course you're going to feel nervous, especially when you really want to do something so well, because I mean, you're about to do something great. Of course, you might have some nerves. The problem is that we don't want those nerves to get in the way. We don't want them to be unhelpful. So if the nerves are there, fine, but you can come along the journey with me, nerves. Give it a name if you want to. Come along the journey with me. Let me tell you what we're doing today. Today, we're going to gear up Africa. Today, we're going to go speak to a whole bunch of amazing people. Today, this is the message that we're going to share. And so you don't want to be in a position where those nerves actually come in the way. Okay, I'm coming now. My daughter just came home. She's giving me instructions. I'm coming now, okay? So you don't want those nerves to come in the way. And it's okay to feel nervous and to still speak with confidence. Like, it doesn't mean that because you're nervous, you are no longer confident, because it is possible for you to experience two very different feelings at the same time. You can think about a graduation ceremony, for example. Okay. Sorry, guys, please give me a minute. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yes. So as I was saying, it is very possible for you to feel nervous, but you can still speak with confidence because you can feel two very different feelings at the same time. As an example, let's say you're at your graduation ceremony. Of course, you are happy, you are so proud of your achievement, but at the same time, you might also be sad about the friends and the familiar environment that you're leaving. So you're happy and sad at the same time. It doesn't mean that there's one that's invalid and another one that's valid. So only one, only one can exist at a time. You are able to experience two different feelings at the same time. So just because you're feeling nervous, don't then go and tell yourself, because I'm feeling nervous, I cannot speak with confidence. That's not true. You can still speak with confidence. Now, when we go into the strategies to manage nerves and anxiety, I'm going to look at and build confidence. Yeah. So I'm going to look at one technique for managing your nerves and anxiety and one technique for growing and building your confidence. Now, because of where the nerves stem from, where there's the fear of judgment, you're so afraid of making mistakes, or you have those past negative experiences, when you're about to now enter into the speaking situation again, your mind and your body is like, we know how this goes, okay? We've been there before. And so it feels as though it is under attack. And because it's under attack, you can't think clearly, you can't, you now can't articulate yourself as you wanted to. So many things are going through your mind. And one of the best ways to then calm both your mind and your body is to breathe. I know we hear this a lot, but I don't think we always do it. We almost just dismiss it as in it sounds too easy, that all I have to do is really just breathe. It helps to just ground you, bring you back to this moment right here, right now, and realize that you are okay. You are okay. You're just a speaker with an audience and you have a message for that audience. That's it. You're not under threat. You are not under attack. And so there's a breathing exercise that I'd like for us to do together. We're going to breathe in together deeply. We're going to hold it. And then we're going to breathe out as though we're breathing out through a straw. The only reason why I say we breathe out as though we're breathing out, to breathe out as though we're breathing through a straw, is because I want the exhale to be longer than the inhale. Okay, to really just calm your body. So if you had to breathe in through your nose, it's unfortunate that I can't see you. Breathe in through your nose. And you hold it. You hold it for at least 4 seconds. And then you breathe out as though you're breathing out through a straw. So the more you do that, the more you're actually calming your mind and you are calming your body as well. When you're taking a flight and, you're going on a trip, and as you enter the plane, they then give you all the safety measures. And one of the things they tell you is, there's the oxygen mask, and I think they also have like a little bag that they'll give you if ever you find yourself in a stressful situation or an emergency, so that you can breathe through that bag. Have you ever wondered why they actually give you that? Why they want you to breathe and to focus just on breathing? It's because they need for your mind to know that you are okay. Because once you do that, once you focus on the breathing, once you calm your mind down, once you calm your body down, then you are able to think clearly. When we're nervous, when we feel like we're under attack, your blood is rushing to the parts of the body to help you to survive. It's not rushing to the parts, the front parts of your body to help you think clearly, remember everything that you wanted to say, so on and so forth. So It's there to help you to survive, to run, to get out of here, to fight, and so on. And so that's why it's so important for you to then calm your mind and to calm your body so that you can then resume thinking a bit more clearly so that you can then deliver the message that you wanted to deliver. Okay. One thing to remember is that if you have a steady breath, then you will have a steady voice. If you have to take short, shallow breaths, if I was taking short, shallow breaths right now, like this is how I'd be speaking. That's when it sounds like it sounds like when somebody's having a panic attack. That's when you can't actually get your words out clearly. But if you take a deep breath, when you're actually speaking out on that exhale, you have a bit more fuel, you have a bit more power. You're a lot more steady, both in your voice and your breath. Okay. I want to see what is in the chat. Mohammed says you can be nervous and still be confident. 100%. Prince says breathing calms nerves. Prince is relaxed already. I love it. Balfour says my fingers get cold and still be sweating just because I'm nervous. Yes, it happens. It happens. Those are one of the ways in which nerves really manifest themselves. Okay. Now we're going into confidence. And I'm quite excited. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss. So when it comes to confidence, right? I'd like for you to share in the chat what confidence actually means to you. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What is confidence? In the meantime, though, I'll share the dictionary definition. So the dictionary says it is the feeling or belief that one can have in or rely on someone or something. And confidence comes from the Latin word fidere, which means to trust. Therefore, having self-confidence is having trust in one's self. And as you can see, I've really highlighted the words trust because that's what really stands out for me when I hear the words confidence. Okay, in the chat, please share with me when you hear the word confident, what comes to mind? What does confident look like? What does confidence sound like? Blondie says confidence is to believe in yourself. Yes. Manuel says, I'm strong enough to conquer. John says, simply feeling and believing you can actually do what you want to do. Yes, I like that. 100%, 100% when it comes to confidence. So what's interesting is that I find there are lots of cousins of confidence. And we tend to say confidence is the cousin, but it's not necessarily the cousin, right? An example is self-esteem. So because you hold yourself in high regard, it means that you have self-confidence. They're definitely related, but it's not one for one. Okay? Because you have certain abilities, you have the ability to run a marathon, now you're a confident person. You might be confident in that. It doesn't mean that you're confident in all areas. And just because you don't have that ability doesn't mean you lack confidence. You don't lack confidence. Some people might say, okay, I think it was Aurelio who had said in the beginning about being introverted. Because you're introverted, you lack confidence, or because you're extroverted, you have confidence. Now, if we go back to the definition and we say that confidence is trust, to trust in someone, just because you're an introvert, which means that you get your energy from being alone, or from, you need some time to really just think and process things before you speak out or before you go out there. Because of that, it does not mean you don't trust yourself. You can very well trust yourself. And the inverse is true. Just because I am a loud person, I am extroverted, I get my energy from being around people, being around large crowds, now I'm confident. That doesn't, just because it's that, it does not mean that you trust yourself. Okay, an example of trust. Say I was meant to come here tonight. Judith and Emmanuel invited me. I said yes, I would come. Now the time comes and I'm not here. And some days go by, and then I send Judith an email. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. This and that happened. This is why I couldn't make it. And Judith is like, no, absolutely understandable. You know what? Let's do it for next time. Next time comes, same thing happens. I don't pitch. The subsequent times, even if I vow to Judith that I will be here, what are the chances that she's going to trust my word? What are the chances that she's going to believe I'm actually going to be here? She's not. But the thing is, when it comes to trust, a lot of us only think about the other person. That person I can't trust. That person doesn't stick to their word. That person breaks their commitments. We seldom think about ourselves. How often do you actually sit yourself down and say, okay, I had made myself this promise. I had made myself this commitment. I had said that I was going to do this, and I betrayed myself. I didn't do it. Every time that you do that, you break your self-trust. And because you break your self-trust, now you're like, oh, I don't speak because I'm an introvert. No, you don't speak because every time you said you were going to speak, you never spoke. And so you tend to see that if I can keep my commitments to myself, no matter how small they are, if I said I was going to do something, if I promised myself something, and I actually go ahead and I do it, no matter how small it is, I'm starting to build trust within myself. That is how we start to build confidence. And so, let me just put here. We've got these two bags, right? These two bags are yours. I was actually looking for pictures of banks because I was thinking, putting money in the bank and we're growing it, but I couldn't find nice pictures. I went with the bags. Think of it as a money bag. So we've got these two bags. And these two bags represents the actions that you take, okay? You said you were going to ask that question in this meeting. You said you're going to share your ideas. You said you were going to show up for yourself. You said you were going to try. You were going to do one small thing for yourself. If you do it, you start to put money in your confidence bag because you start to tell yourself that you can trust yourself. And you trust yourself to do the things that you said you were going to do regardless of the outcome. You have to learn to detach yourself from the outcome. Yes, you ask a question, and then maybe people roll their eyes and say, what? That was such a silly question, Mohammed. The next time, you still have to do it. Because the more you do it, the more your brain knows, no, every time I say I'm going to do something, I do it. So I know that I can trust myself. I know that regardless of the setting, if I have a question, I'm going to ask that question because I've detached from the outcome. But every time you make a commitment, you make a promise, you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you're then feeding into the doubt. So then the next time, as with my example, the next time I tell Judith, I'm going to be there, I promise. Judith's like, girl, please, you're not. And it's the same with your mind as well. The next time you say, oh, okay, you know what? I'm not going to put my hand up for this opportunity, but the next time the opportunity comes, that's when I'll put my hand up. Your brain's like, yeah. I know how the story goes. We're going to start here, then we're going to turn left. But the more you actually put yourself in the position where you say, no, I will say yes to the opportunity. No, I will stand up and speak. No, I will voice my ideas. No, I will respect my boundaries and my rights in that difficult conversation with that difficult stakeholder. Your brain's like, hey, we're out here creating new paths. These are not roads that we've been on before. These are not avenues that we've traveled before. So we're going to create new paths. And it's almost like you've given it an instruction. It's going to look for everything that it can do to help you fulfill that promise that you made. Because that's what we do now. We are fulfilling the promises that we make to ourselves. And so my last thing on confidence is if you actually want to build it, you need to start sticking to your commitments and taking action, regardless of how small it is. That goes for public speaking and it goes for other areas of your life as well. If you said you're going to do something, you do it. That's how you build that trust. I'm going to just have a look at the messages. Okiera says having a personality aura. Aurelia says confidence is to be well prepared. Alex says confidence means enjoying what you're doing and doing it with a passion. Nati says confidence to me means doing something without fear. Yes, or you can do it with the fear, but as long as you do it. You say that you were going to do it, so you have to do it. Okay. Mohammed says believing in your capacity, ability to stand on your own. Confidence is trust in one's own ability. Yes, in your ability, but also trusting that you'll do what you said you were going to do. Because, you know, the first couple times that you do something, you're not yet strong in that ability. You're not yet strong in that skill. But that shouldn't be a reason why you just stop trying. Because I'm not good at it, I'm not going to try. That's not a good enough reason. If you want to build the confidence there, you're going to have to keep on trying. Because just like speaking, confidence is also a skill. You can actually build it. You can strengthen that muscle. Okay? Saram says, to me, confidence is seeing something I want and going for it, thinking something and saying it, approaching someone who sparks my interest and starting a conversation with them. Yes, Ruth says being able to express oneself without fear of being judged. Absolutely. Detach from the outcome. I know it is difficult, but I promise you, the more you do it, the better. Okay? Emmanuel says having no self-doubt. And you know, when it comes to that, it's simply like the two money bags that I put here. It works. It's what did we say in science class? It's a maths class. It's inversely proportional. Okay. So if you have a commitment and you take action, you're growing the confidence. If you have a commitment and you don't take the action, you're growing your self-doubt. So, you know, it's not to say that you never have self-doubt, but which one do you want to grow? Which bag do you want to grow? And in the last few messages, Lundi says, trusting in yourself definition is powerful, and Prince says confidence is a skill. It absolutely is a skill. You can grow it. Okay. All right. I feel like I was preaching there, like when it comes to confidence, your girl gets heated. Okay. So now we want to know how to deliver a compelling message. Now, we looked at some of the fears that we have. We looked at ways in which we can manage our nerves. We looked at a way in which we can build our confidence. Now we are doing that work. We're doing that work and we want to deliver a compelling message. There are 3 items that I want to share with you today when it comes to delivering a compelling message. The first thing is I want for you to begin with the end in mind. I think a lot of times when we're speaking, sometimes you just start to speak. You just say whatever. And if anything, I find extroverts tend to fall into this way of thinking, you know, they're literally just thinking out loud. So now they take us to point A, now we're at point D, then we're back at B, then we go to Z, then we come back. Like the audience is so confused. And if anything, introverts tend to have such well thought out thoughts that they share with you because they took the time to understand things. Yes, sometimes it's late, like we needed you to come back to us a bit faster, but they take the time to really understand certain things. So by the time they're actually articulating it to you, it is so well thought out. So just because you're an introvert, I promise you, speaking is for you. Effective communication is for you. And it is something that introverts are actually quite good at. Not to say extroverts aren't, but introverts are actually quite good at articulating a thought in such a way that we can follow the journey with you. Okay. So the first thing is to begin with the end in mind. I want you to ask yourself, at the end of this, at the end of this message, at the end of my talk, when I'm done speaking, what do I want this person or this group of people to think, to feel, or to do? Because it must have a purpose. We're not just speaking for our health. And when people are listening to you as well, most times people are thinking, what is in it for me? Why do I have to listen to this? How is this actually going to help me? And so if you start with the end in mind, you can say, by the end of this, I want you to, I want them to feel, I want them to think, I want them to do this. And then you then navigate your message towards that point. That's how it is compelling. But if you just start anywhere, you're just taking us everywhere. It's like going to an event, right? You get invited to this glamorous party. It's wonderful. We're gonna have like a 7-course meal. And then the first meal is the dessert. Then they give us the main meal. Then the starter. Then we get the palate cleanser. Then, each component on its own was wonderful, very tasty. But the thing is, it just didn't follow the order. I didn't know what was coming next. I didn't know what to expect. And that, to me, then made me a bit nervous and uneasy about the organizers and what they were actually trying to do and achieve. So it's similar to when you're delivering something to your audience to say, this is where we're starting and this is the end point. At the end of this, this is what I want for you. So as they're listening to you, they know exactly where we are going with this. So begin with the end in mind if you really want to make sure that you make the impact that you wanted to make. The second thing in delivering compelling messages, and this I tend to see a lot in meeting rooms, and I was there as well, is to ditch the doubtful dialogue. Okay. Things like, oh, I'm not sure if this is making sense. If you're not sure if it's making sense, how are we supposed to know if it's making sense? Anything you say after that is not compelling. Anything you say after that will not convince me because I don't know if you even know what you're talking about. Even saying things like, this might be a stupid question. Okay, now I'm expecting you to say something that might be silly. And even if it's not, I'm wondering, why would you have said that? Why are you doubting it so much? If you're doubting it, how can I trust it? Saying or even over apologizing. You make a slight mistake, you're so sorry. It's okay to just correct yourself. Just the over apologizing, sometimes it really just dilutes your message. It dilutes the perception that we have that you are confident. Somebody else can correct you. I can say, like the example I gave earlier, I can say this project is $1,000 instead of saying $10,000. And then Emmanuel corrects me and says, Vanessa, it's actually $10,000. Thank you, Emmanuel. It is $10,000. And we move right on. Correction, that is it. I remember once I was on an email trail and I escalated something to one of my stakeholders, right? We needed to get certain information, and the people who needed to send the information were not sending it, and time was running out. So I escalated so that they know, listen, time's running out, we might not get this information in time. And so this senior stakeholder now, they go and they escalate to someone even more senior in the area, the affected area. But on the email, they put in the wrong amount. And I remember reading this email, I was like, "Ooh, this is the wrong amount." Like, okay, should I message him on the side and say, oh, it's the wrong amount? Should I go back on the trail and say, hey, it's the wrong amount. This is actually the right amount. And so on. I'm literally going back and forth in my mind. And I knew that if it were me who had sent out that email, me back then, right? If it were me who had sent out that email, I would have gone back and said, guys, everybody, I apologize. I'm so sorry. That was the wrong balance. This is actually the right number. 2 minutes later, the senior stakeholder comes back on the email. All he says is correction, ... and puts in the right number. I was like, is that it? Is that it? If it were me back then, I would have been apologizing profusely. And because we tend to do that, it's almost like you don't trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, how's your audience supposed to trust you? And that's what really it hinders us from delivering compelling messages because our dialogue is so doubtful. The third thing is your body language. Your body language must serve you. Remember, when you walk into a room, the way you walk in, the way you open the door, the way you sit down, the way you position yourself, everything is already speaking. You are speaking before you utter a word. Okay? So if your body language is not aligned with what you are saying, your message is not compelling. If I'm sitting here and I'm just talking about speaking with confidence, I'm like, no, guys, you can really do it. You can do it. You can speak. You're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe it. That's not compelling. And if you had to just sit up, right? You can do the exercise with me. Unfortunately, I can't see you guys. If you had to just sit up and you've got your chin up parallel to the floor and you had to nod like that. So you just try it with me. You sit up, chin up, chest out, and try to nod. Without having to speak, that nod has a certain message. It speaks to you might, if you're on the other side, you might really be trying to convince me of something. You might be on some, okay, no, maybe she's really thinking about it. She's really considering it. Whereas if I'm sitting back like this, you're speaking to me and I'm like nodding like that. What are you thinking? What are you thinking about my body language, about my stance on the matter that we're speaking about? So you really want to make sure that your body language adds up to the message that you are trying to send. If you want people to trust what you're about to say, you need to look like you trust it yourself. You need to look like you have that confidence in that message as well. And those are just 3 of the ways in which you can really deliver a compelling message. You begin with the end in mind. You know exactly where you're taking this audience. This audience trusts you because the way you're going with this conversation, it is exactly what they expected. Number 2, you don't have doubtful dialogue. So if you're doubting yourself with every second word, how can I trust you? And number 3, your body language serves you. It serves you in the message that you are trying to share. Okay. I want to see what's in the chat. Sarah says, preach on. Thank you. Judith says, we would love to take questions and answer session at 8:30 if possible. Absolutely. Prince says, don't discredit yourself before someone else does. 100%. 100%. Okay. So in summary, We spoke about the roots of public speaking anxiety and nerves. We spoke about fear of judgment, being afraid to make mistakes, having past negative experiences. We then touched on the techniques to manage our nerves and anxiety. The technique for that was proper deep breathing. Remember, a steady breath will result in a steady voice, and how to build confidence. And the number one way to build confidence is to keep your commitments. Number three, we then looked at ways in which you can deliver a compelling message. You start with the end in mind. You ensure that you don't have doubtful dialogue, and you ensure that your body language is in line with the message that you're trying to share. Okay, so that's in summary for me. I hope that you absolutely enjoyed it. What I want to leave you with is that your voice is like your signature. Okay, your signature holds weight. It transmits value. Your signature can make or break deals. Your signature can bring about change. And that's exactly what your voice can do. So I encourage you to make those commitments and keep them, to say yes to speaking opportunities. I encourage you to use your voice in such a way that it is bold, it is proud, and you know what? You are doing the best to service both yourself and the people around you. So use that voice and speak with confidence. Judith, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I've really learned. I was just taking notes, on some of the things that you were sharing. Guys, the first time I actually heard about Vanessa was on YouTube. I was just randomly looking at some career, information. And then I just came by a podcast that had been recorded. I think it's the Capital Conversation, something
Yes.
around, that YouTube. And I came across, and it so much resonated. I was in that time of my career where I needed to on the public speaking, how to really sell myself, how to communicate my ideas very well. And so coming on to meeting that video, I said, nah, you are really good for this. And tonight you have really even magnified the reason why we needed you so much for this evening's event. Thank you. And we really appreciate all the insight that you have shared. There's been we have a ton of questions right now in the question bank. I know some of them have been answered as you were presenting, so I wouldn't repeat some of them. We'll just look at some that I think maybe you would want to share more light on. So the first question I was gonna ask is, what role do you think storytelling play in public speaking, and how can one become better at crafting and delivering stories?
Yeah, storytelling is super important in public speaking, especially because a lot of us, the spaces that we work in is just data filled, like it's just numbers or it's facts, so on and so forth. And people don't always remember that. You know, if you even had to think about a speech or a message that you had heard once before and why it stuck with you, you might not remember everything word for word, but you might remember the story or the analogy that was used, and you'll definitely remember how it made you feel.
Yeah.
And the way to help people to feel something, to really connect with something, to bring the emotion into it is to use storytelling. There are various storytelling techniques. However, if you have ever been through something that has, led to your growth, if you've ever been sad before and you came out of it, you've ever been happy before, you've ever been excited, you've ever tried to do something and you actually did it, or you didn't do it and you learned something, you've got a story. And if you can then link that story to a message that you want to share with your audience and it's relevant, they will remember your message that much more. Like you might forget everything I said. Maybe you'll remember about my interview, that just went horribly wrong, because it's a message, it's a story that you might even be able to relate to, or someone else who's been through something similar. So storytelling is so important. Once you get people's emotions involved, oh, you've got them hooked.
In your career, I think what would be best is, even if, thank you for that, but can you illustrate, with us, if you've got any experience, maybe just talk about what you have done, a storytelling scenario that you have done in the past. Yeah, so that people
Yeah.
get more context into it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So when I started leading the projects,
Mm.
right? When I started leading the projects, we landed a massive project. This project had been going on for years before me. We eventually landed it. And because it was so big, the head of my department said, no, when we're having our year-end function, I want you to come and tell us about this project. Now, mind you, my team of, in my wider team, we're about 15. They will know exactly what I'm talking about. They will know the jargon and so on and so forth. But I was speaking to 400 people who do not know about what I do in my small team. And also, they don't care. It is year end. They're trying to eat, drink, and be merry. And so, how I explained it was because it was a very technical thing that we did. How I explained it was I made it familiar to our experiences with Excel. So, sometimes, especially when you need for it to work, you've got all this information on Excel and you're about to click save, and then it stops responding. And
Mm.
that's exactly what it was like. It stops responding and it gives you three options. It says, do you want to close Excel? Do you want to restart? Or do you want to wait? Like, what do you want to do? But right now, I'm not working. And that was actually our experiences before we implemented this project. And by the time we then used the technology, we were able to put a whole bunch of information together and then land the project. It was as though the Excel only had one line on it because this tool was so powerful that it
Mm.
took all the information that I needed and it was now like a click of a button. So when I was now using Excel and I clicked save, it was so fast. So I used that analogy, and then people were like, oh, can you tell me a bit more about this system that you used and how it was able to save your documents so fast? Even though it wasn't saving documents, but they understood it as this thing is now saving documents. It's so much faster because they can understand the frustration of when Excel is
Yeah.
not working, and they can understand the joy of when you click and it just saves immediately. So that was actually a real story and a proper analogy that they could relate to. And that's how I conveyed that project.
Love it. I love the way it's one of the things you just said, that is the most simplest way of communicating it. But the way you communicated it really sparked the interest of the people to even listen to you. And I hope people have learned from it. Thank you for sharing that. I'll ask the next question and then Emmanuel will come in to also continue from there. Someone wants to know, how do you prepare to deliver an excellent or a good presentation? For you, how do you do that?
The person who asked, was this one good or excellent? Because if it is, I can tell you how I prepared for this one.
Maybe run us through how you prepared for this.
So
Yeah.
the way I prepared for this one, when you had reached out to me, Judith, I was like, okay, great, we're gonna talk. But the thing is, public speaking is so vast. So I was like, where do I even start? What do they want to focus on? And then I think a month ago, it
Mhm.
must have been Emmanuel, posted something on LinkedIn, and he said, in this session, this is what you can expect to get. So I was like, oh, wait, this is the expectation. I can't just go and talk about anything I want to know. This is the expectation. So I want them to get exactly this. And that day, a month ago, I wrote out everything. I knew exactly. I knew what my intro was going to be, what my 3 messages were going to be, because you don't want to share too many messages, too many points. People are going to forget. Okay. We all have a lot on our minds. If you can give 3 points, that's so much easier. My 3 points and my closing. And then I left it at that. Now, because I had a good idea of that, I would then now think about the different key messages. What else can I add here? But it wasn't a thing of sitting down and thinking about it. No, I could be on a walk and I'm like, hey, when it comes to building confidence, what is actually quite key? And then I practice that out. I get back home, I write it down. And that was that. My slides are always the very last thing that I do. I hope they were good quality because I did them this afternoon. Okay. Because if you start with your slides, you get obsessed with the slides. Now it's, oh, this picture isn't good. Does this go in nicely? This doesn't work, so on and so forth. No. What's important is your message. And so I made sure I was very clear on the message that I wanted to share with you based on the expectations that was already put out there for this session. And then this afternoon, I was like, hey, I should probably put those slides together. And that's how I prepared. But like I said, with the compelling message, I had the end in mind. And the end was the expectation that the audience would have for this session.
Thank you for that. I have a follow up on that. Would that be the same for so I want to understand our audience. We have work class and then we have university student. What would be your advice also for the students that will be preparing for presentations and all that?
Yeah. So very similar. And because you had told me that in the audience we would have both, you would see in some of my examples of public speaking
Yeah.
situations, I then had some stuff for the students so that they can feel that they can also relate to the conversation. Now, with the student presentations, I think it's quite important to know your audience, right? You know, you're going to be presenting to your lecturer. Maybe they're going to get someone who's already working in your industry to come and assess your project and so on and so forth. So what are some of the questions that they could have? What would be the expectations? What would they want to see or to know from someone who's at your level? And you prepare for that. When it comes to preparation as well, I never encourage preparing word for word, or writing out everything word for word. What I would encourage for you to do is to write out your concept. What is the key concept and what are your thoughts or your beliefs
Yeah.
around that? Because as soon as you go word for word, then on the day of presentation, if you forget one word, if you forget one order, it completely throws you off. And that's not something that you want. I can tell you for free that half of the things I said tonight, it's not in the same order I would have liked to say. It's maybe not the same word I would have liked to use or the same phrase I would have liked to use. But because I knew my concept, because I knew what I believe or think around that concept, then I just spoke to that.
Yeah.
You don't try to prepare by learning everything word for word and so on. Just know your concepts, know the message that you want to send, know your audience, and then align your message to that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Someone had a question about how to memorize, your thought or your message for a presentation, and I believe you answered that question even whilst answering this. Emmanuel, are you here now? Are you on
Yes,
to ask?
I am here and
Yeah, please take it.
I've been enjoying the conversation so far. My notebook is almost full. So yeah, just continuing from what you just said. Let's say somebody is on stage, the person had planned the concept and everything, but as soon as the person got on stage and saw the people, the person is now frantic, has been caught by stage fright. Is there a technique or a methodology to quickly snap out of that and then continue your presentation?
Yeah. So that's princess to breathe. Yes, definitely breathe. So that's something that happens, right? And it happens to the best of us. I think what in that moment, what's happening is that you are so in your head, and now you're thinking everybody's looking at me, what are they thinking, so on and so forth. Once again, remember why you are there. Have that end in mind. And what I also encourage is to have a service mindset. When you are there, it's not for your own good. When you are there, it's so that you can be of service to that audience. There's something that this audience needs to know. There's something that this audience needs to feel. There's something that this audience needs to do. And you are just the vessel. So this is the content. this is the audience. You're that small vessel between the content and the audience. If you have the service mindset, then you know that it's not about you, it's purely about the message. So just remind yourself, okay, it's me, Emmanuel. These people are students. What they need from me today is to understand how to do presentations. Now, I've forgotten my first point. However, the end point is this here. What can I say to get them there? You might forget the word that you wanted to use. You might forget the phrase that you wanted to use. But just remember, I'm here at point B. I'm trying to get them to point F. How do I jump on those little, can you imagine like lily pads? How do I jump on the next lily pad and the next lily pad and the next lily pad to then get them to that point? That's it. It's not about anything else. So it's okay to forget your words. It's okay to maybe lose your train of thought. But if you know the reason why these people are even listening to you today, then you can always just recollect and say, okay, this is what I need to tell them so that they can get to that point and then feel the way I needed them to feel, do what I wanted them to do, or know what I wanted them to know.
Wow. Thank you so much. Let's go a bit back to body language. I've observed in your presentation, you've used a lot of body language, gestures, and all that. How does one incorporate this into their presentation so that it doesn't become, so that they don't lose focus of what they are saying? They are more conscious of the body language and then they lose focus of what they are saying. And two, so that it doesn't become so much that it distracts your audience, particularly with movements and hands going here and there. How does one deal with that?
Yeah, basically it mustn't become unnatural. Just because they said use your hands, now you're talking like this, it must not become unnatural. So firstly, as I mentioned in the presentation, right? Use the body language that will serve you. So even if I want to be upright, I know you gave the example of a presentation, but let's say I'm just having a conversation with Judith. I'm not going to sit like this. This is ridiculous. Judith will be like, what is going on with you? I'm just having a conversation with Judith, but I'm here exerting my authority. What is going on? So read the setting. If you are busy doing your presentation, you do want to come across as knowledgeable. Something as simple as walking towards the people that you're talking to when you start, that's strong body language. That is saying, hey, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm very forthcoming with it. Just like the inverse as well. If I start off and then I just start walking back, I start curling my shoulders, what message is that sending? So make sure that however you stand, however you present, however you look at people, it's in line with the message that you're trying to send, and it's actually serving you. It is enhancing your verbal message. And it comes with practice as well. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be with maybe, when I stand up, my feet are firm. I'm not swaying left to right. I'm not like bouncing on one side. When I look at people, I've become more comfortable to look at a person maybe for 2 or 3 seconds while I share a thought, and then I look at the next person. Maybe in the beginning it's more like a sprinkler. You're just like, but you're not actually making that connection. But the more you do it, you're like, oh, this is something that works well. This is even something that even calms me, because you're looking at someone and they're looking at you and you're like, wait, this is just another person. It's just, I'm just speaking to Emmanuel. I'm just speaking to Miles. Like it's not that, it's not as daunting as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And then with the gestures that you use, you want for it to make sense. So different people take in information in different ways. Some people just need to hear what you're saying and they're good. Other people need to see something and then they will understand. Others need to do something. You know, when they say, oh, raise your hand if you are, or, you know, raise your hand if you agree. Some people will remember a message because they raised their hand. They actually had to do something. So when it comes to the visual, yes, you might have your PowerPoint presentation, but if I tell you I have 3 messages for you, I list the first one, the second one, and the third one. As I'm doing that, with some people, their minds are actually working so much better to understand what I'm saying. Whereas if I was just standing here and I'm like, no, I've got 3 messages for you. The first one is whatever, the second one, third one. You might not even remember it, even if it was on my slides, even if you read it there. So you really want to use your body language in such a way that it will enhance your message. You can talk about an increase. You can talk about a decrease. Oh, I want a big bowl of pasta. Oh, I'm not hungry at all. You know, as long as the gestures that you're using amplify your message and they're in line with it.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. Just to follow up on that, I know that, or I've observed from some colleagues that whenever they are presenting, they kind of change the tone of their voice. So some kind of like deepen their voice just to exude that confidence and authority. What's the way around it, or what's your thoughts on that?
You can absolutely do that. You know, your voice is an instrument, right? It is an instrument. If you think about another instrument like a piano, now, can you imagine having a whole piano and for your whole life, the whole life of that piano, you've only ever used one key? It's just one key. It's always the same sound. What was the point? What was the point? My voice has changed now. What was the point? Use the instrument. Some people will increase the volume to add excitement, to add urgency. Others will reduce it so that, you know, you can convey that what I'm about to say is very serious. What if, you know, you're quite curious about something? You want to make use of this instrument. It can help you to even convey your messages better. I can, you know, we could talk loud tonight. Oh, what are we gonna have after this? And we've got ideas. And I say, oh, we should go for pizza. That's amazing. Now you know, you're thinking, yeah. And it might sound even like a suggestion, but I could say, we're gonna do pizza. That's a bit more serious. And now you're like, okay, so it's not a suggestion. You've just decided we're gonna do pizza. So depending on the setting, depending on the way you want for that message to be perceived or rather received, you can change your voice. You can increase it, reduce it. You can use the tone. You can pause. There's so much you can do with this instrument. Use it. Use it.
Okay. I'm gonna use my voice now.
There are so many keys on it. You need to try all the stuff and notes.
There are so many keys. Let's use the notes.
Interesting. I think I went up.
Amazing.
Okay. Yeah, I've got one more question. And that has to do with a situation where you have encountered something during your presentation, be it an unexpected question or or a challenge or a distraction. How do you maintain your composure to maintain that confidence, to present that confidence front?
Okay, so two elements there, maybe a difficult question, an unexpected question, and an unexpected distraction. So an unexpected question, right? Yes, we're trying to prepare as much as possible. An unexpected question or a difficult question, it is bound to happen. And the way you respond is also going to be how everyone now perceives that confidence in you, right? If you asked me a question, if you asked this question now and I didn't have an answer, if I said, oh, Emmanuel, I don't know everything else I've said now, you might be like, did you even know what you were talking about previously? You know? But if I say, Emmanuel, I don't have much experience with voice modulation or with unexpected questions, but what I can do is get the information for you and I will share it with both you and the audience by tomorrow. Then you're like, oh, okay, cool. You know, she didn't have that information, but she's going to share it with us. So You don't have to know everything. And I think that's what sometimes even holds us back, because we have this expert fallacy that if I'm giving the presentation, if I'm the one speaking, I must just know 100% of everything. Nope. I'm in public speaking. There's someone who knows even more than me. There's someone who knows more than that person. There's someone who knows more than that person. Then they're learning from me. I'm learning from this one. Like we are all just learning. There is no one who knows 100% of everything at 100% of the time. It's okay to not know, but be confident in that answer as well. Don't feel that, you know what, now you should put yourself down because you didn't have the answer. You can
Yeah.
say, I don't have much experience with that, but I do know where I can get an answer for you. Or if I know that maybe I know Judith has the answer or she's got some experience, I'll say, oh, Emmanuel, you know what? Let's hear what Judith has to say, and then I will add on to that. So while she's speaking, I might then be thinking of something, how I could add to that, so on and so forth. But it's okay to not know. It is okay. Take that pressure off of yourself. You know, I'm not saying be unprepared, don't take initiative to get to know your space, your area, your work. No, absolutely, that you need to do. We've got like a bar of excellence here that you need to do. But if you don't have the answer, state that you don't have the answer. Don't be shy about, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't know. No, I don't have an answer for you right now, but I can get something for you tomorrow. So that's how you can deal with an unexpected question. An unexpected distraction. Those are things that also happen. I mean, when we started off, you know, there was the sounds and stuff. Now, I wasn't sure if somebody's talking, is somebody not talking, should I continue, so on and so forth. But I knew that Emmanuel and Judith said go on. So I was like, okay, I'm going on. That's how I'm dealing with this distraction. I'm going on. Something that really helps me, especially with a big presentation or a high stake conversation that I'm going to have, is I actually visualize it all. I visualize it from beginning to end. This is how I'm going to start. This is what I want to achieve. This is how I'm going to get there. Excuse me, this is what I'm going to be wearing, okay, in that session. I know it. I can share a story with you quickly. Last year, I had the launch of my book, and there was some confusion with the venue. As I started, the owner came up to me in my ear and she was like, I don't know who booked the venue. There was a bit of confusion, but I want you and your guests out of here in 5 minutes. And I was like, excuse me? Everybody's sitting. I'm literally talking. We are going through the book launch. And she was like, I want you out of here in 5 minutes. So now I have to keep on speaking, but I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I cannot tell you how I even got to the end of that message. It almost was as if my brain was on autopilot because I had practiced, I had prepared, but I had visualized it so much. It's honestly, I will not lie to you. I feel like my brain just went. And I got to the end, I was like, how did I get to the end? How did I actually say everything that I needed to say? And that's how I dealt with that distraction in that day, on that day. But that was also a big stake environment. You might have the distraction for a smaller meeting. You know, you're in this meeting and now you have this distraction. Once again, where are you trying to take this audience? If you know where you're trying to take them, you're gonna have to, even if you have to ask for 2 minutes to just collect yourself, or you interject with another question. So while people are answering, you pull yourself towards yourself, and then you take them to the point that you were trying to get them to one more time.
Thank you. Thank you. You've made it very clear that in such a situation, what we have to do is focus on pulling ourselves towards ourselves so that we don't lose our composure. I think these are all the questions from my end, unless anyone or Judith has anything specific they want to ask. These are
The
all.
question. Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you, Vanessa, for those practical tips. I think it's so relatable, some of the things, all the things that you have shared. So really appreciate it. We are on top of the hour. We are running, we're just 1 minute away from our time. So pardon us, everyone. We may have to take about 5 minutes of your time today. We sincerely apologize for that. Before Vanessa gives her last words before we end the call, I would want to speak with everyone or plead with everyone to go on. There's a link that has been shared by Sarah, one of our analysts, on the chat box. Would love to hear from you what you have learned today. I think one thing I love is that Vanessa emphasized that it's in the little details that she shared here. Sometimes we overthink public speaking. Speaking on LinkedIn is part of it, like commenting on posts, sharing your thoughts, not being afraid to share your thoughts. It's exercising it. Can we start with that? We created a post to say thank you to Vanessa. Can you go on there and then share your comment on how impactful this event has been? Share your comment, what you learned from it, and then all of us, let's just keep it going just as an exercise to walk out of our comfort zone, to overcome that fear. This is a practical way for you to do it. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. And do well to follow all of our socials. So we're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, on Facebook, and on X. We are all there at Gear Up Africa. That is the only way for you to get, informed about our opportunities. We run the intermittently send out opportunities on our posts. We send out career events as well. So this career event is every month. And for next month, we are hosting how to prepare for internship opportunities, global and local. So be on the watch out for that. For those as well. We are on LinkedIn and all the other social media platforms that I talked about. It's been an insightful session. And before we go, I would like for Vanessa to two-in-one question. What will be your last words for all of our audience today? And then also, are there any materials? You just mentioned that you have a book. What is the title of your book? Where can we get it? And are there any further materials that our audience can use in advancing their public speaking skills? Oh, I need to unmute here. Sorry. What is it? How do I even find it? Vanessa. You can't see you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So I do have resources. I've got a book available. It's called Speaking with Confidence, The Secret Sauce to Success, where I give practical tips on how you can handle different aspects of public speaking. It is available for delivery globally. What I am working on is just a soft copy because I think that might be easier for some people. But that is available. Where you can get that is on my page on Instagram. It's Vanessa_Bukasa. You will have lots of valuable information there. I give lots of free valuable tips and techniques and information there. And there is a link on my bio as well to purchase the book. So that's absolutely, yes, Emmanuel. Vanessa_Bukasa on Instagram. That's where you can find me. And then secondly, my parting words is I want you to remember the word expand. I want you to expand yourself, expand your confidence, expand your thoughts, just expand your territory. I think for so many of us, we play so small. We think because we're introverts, because we're nervous, because we're this, that it should come in the way of speaking. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. You should just expand yourself and expand the impact that you can make both on yourself and to the people around you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa. And thank you once again for everyone for joining. The link is on, I've shared Vanessa's Instagram account, profile link to the chat so you can see it. And then all the links, I'm just making sure that everyone has got the links. Click on the link, click on all the links that we have shared with you just before we are. Last words from all of us to show your appreciation to our speaker in the comment section. You can just say, the thank yous that is coming. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for such a lovely evening and for sharing your wisdom with us. We really learned a lot and definitely going to do this again sometime. Thank you everyone for joining. Until then, see you on our next career session in July.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much for all the messages as well. Yay. Thank you. Yes.
That's right. Are people dropping? Okay, Judith is also gone. Okay. Thank you all very much. Let me end the call for everyone. Makes life easier.